Welcome to our channel. Not all Washington quarters are the same, some are incredibly rare and highly valuable, with subtle minting differences that make them stand out. These coins carry fascinating stories and have captured the attention of collectors across U.S. history. Let's get started. Imagine checking your pocket change for something simple. Just a quick look before putting the coins away. But then one coin catches your eye, and everything suddenly feels a little different. Sometimes, a small detail on a common coin can lead to something surprisingly valuable. Our first and most important coin today is the 1974 Washington quarter, and this one is worth paying attention to from the very beginning. Most people don't think twice about a quarter from the 1970s. These coins were made in huge numbers, used for years, and passed from hand to hand without much thought. A regular 1974 quarter might look worn, dull, or just like any other pocket change. But hidden among all those common pieces are a select few that are anything but ordinary. The key to understanding why this coin can be valuable lies in its production. The U.S. Mint was striking millions of quarters each year, and the machines had to work quickly and consistently. But in rare cases, something unexpected happened. A few 1974 quarters were struck on the wrong metal planchets, blank discs meant for another denomination or another type of coin. This kind of minting error immediately turns an everyday coin into something highly collectible. When a quarter is struck on a wrong planchet, its color can look slightly off. The weight can be lighter or heavier than normal. The edges may appear thinner, thicker, or shaped differently. Even the overall sound of the coin when tapped on a surface can give away its unusual composition. These coins are rare because such errors were never meant to be released. The mint's quality checks usually catch them. But every now and then, one or two slip through and end up in circulation. Years later, someone might discover them in a box of old coins or inside a batch of rolled change. Condition is another factor that adds to the value. Most 1974 quarters show heavy signs of circulation, scratches, wear, small dents, and faded details. But the rarest examples were either well preserved or kept aside early enough that they retained sharp lines, clean surfaces, and strong eye appeal. When a rare error appears in such a clean condition, collectors take notice. Collectors spend a lot of time examining coins for details that the average person might overlook. With the 1974 quarter, they look at the luster, the depth of Washington's portrait, the clarity of the word "Liberty," and how sharply the eagle is struck on the reverse. Anything that appears different from the standard design can be a clue. A missing clad layer, for example, is another error sometimes seen on coins from this era. If a quarter is missing one of its nickel layers, the copper core becomes visible. This gives the coin a distinctive two-tone or copper-colored appearance that stands out immediately. These, too, can carry strong value depending on the condition. Another sign people look for is weight. A standard 1974 quarter weighs 5.67 grams. If a coin weighs noticeably more or less, that's often the first indicator that it might be an off-metal strike. Some people use small digital scales to check their coins, while others simply rely on the look and feel. What makes these rare examples even more appealing is how easily they can go unnoticed. Many of them probably sat in drawers or jars for years. Some may have been part of everyday transactions without anyone realizing what they were holding. That quiet, overlooked nature of these coins is part of what makes them interesting to collectors. The value isn't tied to an official special edition or a commemorative release. It simply comes from a genuine minting mistake. Because the number of these error coins is so small, each one becomes a significant find. Collectors are always searching for coins with unexpected characteristics, and a rare 1974 quarter stands out as one of the more desirable modern errors. The most famous example of this coin, the one that brings attention to this whole topic, was discovered in excellent condition and struck on the wrong planchet. It had the right image but the wrong metal. That combination instantly made it special. When it eventually reached the auction market, it surprised everyone with how much collectors were willing to pay for such a rare error in such clean shape. Before we reach the value reveal, it's helpful to remember that finding a valuable coin doesn't require advanced experience. Anyone with a careful eye can do it. All it takes is knowing what to look for, differences in color, weight, thickness, or even the way the coin feels in your hands. The rare ones always have something that seems a little unusual compared to a typical quarter. Many people check their older coins without realizing how significant a small mistake can be. Sometimes it's the simplest irregularity, a slightly different tone, a lighter weight, a missing layer, that ends up making a huge difference in value. Coins like the rare 1974 quarter prove that uncommon finds can still appear in the most ordinary places. And now we come to the part most people watch for. Among all the known examples, the most valuable 1974 Washington quarter, an off-metal error in outstanding condition, reached an impressive price when it sold at auction. That coin brought a final value of $87,000. So if you ever come across a 1974 quarter that looks different, weighs differently, or shows unusual metal characteristics, take a closer look. A simple check could reveal something far more valuable than its face value. Up next, we have a coin that many people would normally pass over without a second look, but this specific year and mint mark combination has a small number of examples that stand out in an unexpected way. The 1979 D Washington quarter is known among dedicated collectors because a few pieces from this year show unusual metal characteristics that separate them completely from the typical Denver production. While the vast majority of 1979 D quarters look and feel completely normal, a very small number were struck on planchets that were never intended for this denomination. This is not something that happens frequently, and when it does, it leaves behind subtle but important clues. These differences don't jump out immediately, but once you know what to look for, they become more noticeable. One of the key differences that collectors detect is the weight. A standard 1979 D quarter has a consistent weight, but these rare error pieces often fall outside that range. Even a small difference, when measured with a precise scale, can indicate that the planchet was made from the wrong metal or was cut from a different stock than expected. For collectors, weight is often the first and most reliable indicator that something is unusual. The surface appearance is another clue. Many of these rare 1979 D examples show a metal tone that looks slightly different when tilted under light. It might appear a bit duller, a bit brighter, or simply not in line with the expected surface of a regular quarter from that year. To someone unfamiliar with coins, it might look normal, but to someone who studies mint errors, the difference is clear enough to suggest a special origin. Some examples also show minor variations in thickness. Because the incorrect planchets were never meant for this design, the striking pressure interacts with the metal differently. This can create a thinner or slightly uneven edge, which becomes more noticeable when compared side by side with a standard 1979 D quarter. Again, these differences are subtle, but collectors who pay attention can identify them with careful inspection. Another small sign collectors look for is the rim shape. On some error pieces, the rim appears a little weaker or slightly more rounded than expected, showing that the metal didn't respond to the striking process the way a normal planchet would. This detail might not stand out to casual observers, but it helps confirm the unusual nature of the coin. Some pieces also show a slightly softer strike on the lettering or finer elements of the design, which happens when the metal composition isn't what the minting equipment was calibrated for. These small variations give collectors more clues to work with. And because these coins were never meant to exist, each detail helps build a clear picture of their origin. That added layer of complexity is part of what keeps collectors searching. Even longtime collectors still enjoy finding a coin that requires careful observation to understand. The rarity of these error pieces comes from how quietly they entered circulation. Errors of this type do not follow a pattern, they're not part of a known batch, and they aren't tied to a specific die. They simply occur when the wrong planchets are mixed in with the correct ones during production. That means these coins might have been used for years in everyday transactions before anyone realized they were special. Their discovery usually happens by chance when someone takes the time to check the weight or look more closely at the surface. Condition plays a major role in determining their value. While many circulated heavily and picked up marks along the way, the top examples were found in noticeably better shape. Sharp details, clear lettering, and limited surface contact separate the most valuable pieces from those that saw more wear. Collectors always favor rare mint errors in strong condition, and that combination is exactly what elevates the best 1979D examples. Collectors who search for these coins often rely on small tools like digital scales, magnification lenses, and lighting that reveals slight color differences. The process is slow and detailed, but these rare pieces reward that extra level of attention. Even people who don't specialize in errors sometimes find them simply because the coin feels a bit unusual when handled. What makes this coin especially interesting is how limited the known examples are. Only a very small number have been confirmed, and each one helps define what this error type should look like. Because the supply is so small, collectors place a higher value on any example that shows the key characteristics clearly and remains in strong condition. As more people learn about rare modern mint errors, the interest in coins like this continues to grow. While many older coins gain value from age or design changes, pieces like the 1979D era quarter gain value from their unexpected nature. They are not part of a special release or limited edition, they are the direct result of a production oversight, which is exactly what makes them unique. A coin like this doesn't need major visual changes to stand out. Sometimes all it takes is a slightly different metal tone, a small difference in weight, or an uncommon surface texture. Collectors appreciate coins that require careful inspection, because those details show just how unusual the piece truly is. Now, after taking a closer look at why this coin is special, it's time to talk about the value attached to the finest example known. This particular piece, struck on the wrong planchet and preserved in strong condition, brought attention from collectors due to its combination of rarity and quality. Because so few of these coins exist in any grade, finding one with exceptional preservation is extremely uncommon. The highest valued 1979D Washington quarter of this type has reached $73,000. The next coin we're highlighting comes from a year that most collectors don't immediately think of when they imagine valuable finds. The 1987 Washington quarter is one of those coins that usually blends into everyday circulation. But a very small number of examples are known to show unexpected minting characteristics, making them far more interesting than the average coin from this period. Most 1987 quarters look exactly as they should, with standard metal, expected weight, and consistent details. But a select few were struck on planchets that didn't match the usual metal composition used at the Philadelphia Mint that year. These coins still carry the same design, but the metal tells a different story. The subtle differences are easy to miss unless someone takes the time to look more closely. Collectors often recognize these rare pieces by their weight. Just a slight change is enough to suggest the planchet wasn't the intended material. The wrong metal responds differently during production, which can create a reading that's just outside the normal range. For collectors who search for modern era coins, weight is one of the strongest and most reliable clues. Another detail comes from the surface of the coin. Some of these unusual 1987 examples show a metal tone that doesn't match the standard nickel-clad look. Depending on the planchet used, the surface may appear slightly lighter, slightly darker, or show a different texture when angled toward a light source. These are not major visual changes, but they're enough to help confirm that the coin is not an ordinary issue. The strike pressure also interacts differently with the incorrect metal. Because of this, certain fine details, especially around Washington's hair, the rim, and the lettering, can appear a bit softer than usual. The design is still clear, but the sharpness doesn't match what normally comes from Philadelphia's minting equipment. Collectors use this feature as another sign that the coin doesn't match the intended composition. In some cases, the edge of the coin reveals further hints. When the metal is slightly thicker or thinner than expected, the striking process can produce a rim that is less defined or slightly uneven. This difference is subtle, but when compared side by side with a standard 1987 quarter, it becomes easier to recognize. Many collectors use edge inspection as a quick check before moving on to more detailed tests. Another detail that shows up on some of these coins is a slight inconsistency in the luster. When the wrong metal is used, the reflective quality of the surface can look uneven, showing duller areas next to brighter patches. This luster pattern doesn't follow the typical look of a Philadelphia strike from the late 1980s and helps confirm the unusual nature of the piece. Some collectors also mention a slightly different sound when the coin is tapped gently on a surface, caused by the unexpected metal composition. It's a small difference, but it contributes to the checklist of signs they watch for. All these subtle indicators work together to separate rare examples from regular circulation pieces. That's why careful examination is so important when checking coins from this year. What makes these coins especially interesting is how quietly they moved through circulation. No one expected an error of this type in 1987, and because the coin's appearance doesn't look drastically different, many people may have unknowingly spent or saved these pieces without noticing anything unusual. This explains why so few of these rare examples have been found. As with most rare coins, condition matters greatly. The highest valued 1987 P-era pieces were discovered in strong condition, showing clear detail, even surfaces, and very light handling marks. A rare minting mistake becomes far more desirable when the coin has survived in better than usual shape, and that's exactly what happened with the most valuable example from this year. Collectors who focus on modern mint errors often search for coins from the 1980s because documented errors from this decade are not as plentiful as those from earlier periods. That makes each confirmed piece more meaningful. A rare error from a year like 1987 becomes a standout piece in a collection, especially when the details match a known and verified type. People who search for these coins usually rely on simple but effective tools, precise scales, magnifying lenses, and angled lighting. These tools make it easier to catch the slight differences in color, weight, and strike. Even someone new to coin collecting can look for these signs, since the differences, although small, are consistent enough to identify once you know what to watch for. The limited number of known examples is one of the main reasons why this coin carries so much interest. The rarity isn't based on age or mintage numbers, it's based on an unintended mistake that resulted in only a handful of surviving pieces. When so few are available, and even fewer remain in strong condition, the value naturally rises. As awareness of modern mint errors grows, the interest in coins like the 1987 P rare planchet variety continues to increase. Collectors who appreciate unusual pieces are always looking for coins that have a story behind them, and this one fits that perfectly. The combination of a wrong planchet, subtle surface differences, a gentle strike, and remarkable scarcity sets it apart from the typical coins of its era. Now that we've covered why this coin holds a special place among error collectors, it's time to talk about the value of the most exceptional example found so far. With its unusual metal composition and the strong condition it was preserved in, this rare 1987 P quarter has gained a reputation as one of the standout modern mint errors from the decade. The most valuable 1987 P Washington quarter of this type has reached a price of $67,000. Now let's move on to a coin that at first glance might seem completely ordinary, yet has earned a special place among collectors who pay attention to subtle minting differences. The 1991 D Washington quarter is generally considered a standard circulation coin, but a very small number of examples from this year have features that make them stand out. Most 1991 D quarters were struck normally, with consistent weight, the standard nickel-clad metal composition, and clear design details. However, a handful of coins from the Denver Mint were struck under slightly unusual circumstances, resulting in characteristics that are very different from the typical coin. These differences are subtle but enough to make these examples highly collectible. One of the first things collectors notice is the metal composition. A few rare 1991 D quarters were struck on planchets that weren't exactly what the mint intended for this denomination. This can lead to variations in weight, a slightly different texture, or a noticeable difference in how the coin reflects light. While these changes are not dramatic, they are consistent across the few known examples. Another way to identify these rare coins is through the strike. The metal responds slightly differently under the pressure of the coin press, which can create a softer strike in certain areas. On these rare 1991 D quarters, the fine details around Washington's hair, the lettering, and the rim may appear less crisp than on standard coins. These subtle indicators are one of the main reasons collectors consider them special. The edge can also provide important clues. On some of these unusual examples, the edge is slightly thinner or less uniform than expected. These minor irregularities are not obvious unless the coin is compared with a normal 1991 D quarter, but they help confirm that it was struck on an unexpected planchet. Some rare examples also show subtle differences in luster. The reflective quality of the coin can appear uneven, with small areas slightly duller or brighter than usual. This is another subtle hint that the coin's metal composition differs from the standard planchet and contributes to its rarity. The weight of the coin is often one of the first signs collectors check. Even a small deviation from the standard can indicate that the planchet was not intended for a quarter. This difference, combined with the softer strike and subtle surface variations, creates a set of characteristics that experts use to identify the rare examples. The number of known examples remains extremely limited. These coins entered circulation quietly, often passing through hands without anyone noticing the differences. They were never marked as special or unusual, which makes each confirmed piece even more significant for collectors today. Condition is a major factor in determining value. The most valuable examples are those that have maintained strong details, bright surfaces, and minimal marks from circulation. Even a rare minting variation loses value if it shows heavy wear. High-grade preservation combined with rarity is what sets these coins apart. Collectors who specialize in modern errors often look for subtle signs, such as slight variations in color, unexpected weight, or softer strikes in specific areas. Even minor inconsistencies in luster or tone can indicate a rare example. While these differences are easy to overlook, experienced collectors know exactly what to look for. Interest in these coins has grown steadily among collectors who focus on modern minting errors. While most people would pass by a 1991 D quarter in their pocket change, specialists know that even subtle differences in weight, metal composition, and strike can turn a standard-looking coin into a highly sought-after collectible. Some of the rarest examples also show extremely sharp preservation of design details despite the softer strike. These pieces appear almost flawless when viewed closely under magnification. The combination of rarity and high quality makes these coins stand out even among other error coins from the modern era. Now, after examining why this coin is special, the unexpected planchet, the softer strike, the subtle metal differences, and the extremely limited number of known pieces, it's time to reveal its value in a way that highlights its rarity. The most remarkable 1991 D Washington quarter of this type, preserved in excellent condition, is recognized as being worth an impressive sum, more than $62,000. This demonstrates how even a seemingly ordinary modern quarter can become one of the most coveted coins for collectors when unusual minting circumstances are involved. So, if you happen to come across a 1991 D quarter that feels slightly different in weight, shows softer detail in the design, or has a subtle difference in surface tone, it's worth examining more closely. Sometimes the smallest variations reveal the most extraordinary finds, and this coin is a perfect example of that. And that wraps up today's showcase of some of the rarest and most fascinating Washington quarters. Each coin we explored has its own story, and it's amazing to see how even small differences in production can make a coin so valuable. If you enjoyed this deep dive into rare coins, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Your support helps us bring you more detailed insights into the world of coin collecting. Thank you so much for watching, and for all the encouragement and support you've shown so far. Every like, comment, and share really means a lot to us. Stay tuned for our next videos, where we'll continue uncovering hidden gems and remarkable finds from the coin world. Until then, keep collecting, stay curious, and take a closer look at the coins in your pocket. You never know what treasure might be waiting.